The Ver Dominion prided itself on efficiency. Empires weren't built on endless skirmishes and messy exterminations, they were built on order, structure, and resource management. And in the Dominion's view, humans were nothing but a troublesome anomaly, unpredictable, chaotic, and far too stubborn for their own good. So, when the Ver flagship Tyrant's Wing intercepted a convoy of human refugees along the Alcar Rift, the solution seemed obvious. No costly imprisonment, no public executions that might stir sympathy. Instead, the humans would be relocated, more accurately, discarded onto a place that would solve the human problem permanently. That place was Vorga 9. A Class 0 Deathworld. Even the name carried weight in galactic whispers. On Dominion star charts, Class 0 planets were marked with a warning glyph, a skull, etched in burning red. Planets where gravity crushed steel, where the atmosphere burned lungs in seconds, and where native predators hunted in packs the size of dropships. No intelligent species had ever claimed one. No intelligent species ever could. Or so the Ver believed. Day 1. The dropships touched down hard, hatches opening to vomit human prisoners onto blackened soil. The air shimmered with toxic heat, spore clouds drifted on hurricane winds. In the distance, a reptilian titan roared, its silhouette blotting out the green suns. Ver guards stayed only long enough to make sure no one tried to re-enter the dropships. Then, with a hiss of ion engines, they rose into the sky and left the humans to their fate. On the observation deck of the Tyrant's Wing, Commander Sarek of the Ver allowed himself a thin smile. "They won't last a day," he said to his aides. "The planet will do the work for us." Day 3. Something was wrong. Sarek reviewed the surveillance drone footage expecting to see corpses scattered like broken dolls. Instead, he saw movement, organized movement. A cluster of humans worked together to drag the carcass of a scaled predator twice the size of a Ver transport. They skinned it, boiled the meat, and this part baffled Sarek, laughed as they ate. Others dismantled wreckage from the dropship pods, shaping crude blades and reinforced armor. They built lean-tos from local timber that resisted the acidic rainfall. In one recording, a woman in torn combat fatigue shouted something in her guttural language, and the group cheered. Sarek's frown deepened. Day 10. The humans had split into hunting parties. They moved with calculated efficiency, tracking predators rather than hiding from them. They learned which plants could be boiled to neutralize toxins. They dug trenches to divert flash floods away from their shelters. A Dominion science officer suggested perhaps humans had encountered similar environments on their homeworld. Sarek dismissed the idea. No world in Dominion records matched Vorga IX's lethality. Yet, the evidence was irrefutable, the humans were adapting. Day 20. The first rail warning came from a drone feed of the northern ridge. What had once been a barren, jagged cliff now bore the crude shape of a wall, fortifications built from fused rock, predator bones, and scavenged metal plating. The humans had not only survived, they had begun shaping the planet to their will. And then there was the message. It arrived in the Ver fleet's calm system as a simple audio burst, static, then a man's voice, accented but clear. "Thanks for the new home. We'll come visit you soon." Sarek ordered all drones to monitor the humans without interference. If they were to learn the extent of this bizarre resilience, they needed to watch closely. Day 35. The humans were no longer using only scavenged technology. They were forging their own. Dominion analysts identified improvised railguns, combustion engines, and energy cells made from volatile planetary minerals, materials the Ver had deemed unusable. They'd even domesticated one of the planet's apex predators, a six-legged beast armored in obsidian-like scales. Footage showed it carrying supplies, following human commands like a warhound. Morale aboard the Tyrant's Wing began to fray. Lower-ranking officers whispered about the humans as if they were spirits of vengeance, sent to conquer the unconquerable. Day 60. The first attack came without warning. A Ver mining station on the planet's outer moon reported incoming fire. By the time defense turrets engaged, the attackers had already breached the hangar bays. Station cameras caught a glimpse of the intruders, humans in scavenged armor, carrying weapons made from Vorga 9 alloys, their movements swift and precise. They disabled power systems, looted the station's stores, and vanished back toward the planet before reinforcements arrived. Sarek realized with a chill that the humans were no longer just surviving, they were expanding. Day 90. The humans launched their first starship. It was ugly, a patchwork of salvaged Dominion craft, plated with black armor from Vorga IX's minerals, bristling with improvised weaponry. But it flew. And it was fast. Interceptors sent to capture it were destroyed. Not outmaneuvered. Destroyed. The ship broadcast the same human voice as before. "We told you we'd visit." Then it cut communications and vanished into the rift. Day 120. The attacks became systematic. Human raiders struck Dominion outposts, cargo convoys, even small patrol fleets. They didn't occupy, they stripped. Metal, fuel, weapons, food, everything was taken, and every time, the attackers vanished back into the Deathworld as if it had swallowed them whole. By now, Dominion propaganda couldn't hide the truth. Word spread through conquered systems, humans had tamed Vorga 9. Other subjugated species began to see them not as victims, but as proof that the Dominion could be fought. Day 180. The humans returned, not as survivors, but as conquerors. A fleet of 6 warships, each built from Deathworld forged metal and bristling with weapons unknown to Dominion science, emerged from hyperspace near the Tyrant's wing. Sarek watched in silence as the lead ship transmitted one last message. The same voice as always, calm, almost friendly. "You wanted us gone. You made us strong. Now, it's your turn to survive." Moments later, the battle began. Their ships crumbled under firepower that shouldn't have been possible with such limited resources. The humans moved with ruthless precision, their weapons tearing through shields and hull alike. And when the Tyrant's wing finally broke apart, its last sensor sweep caught an image of the human fleet turning away, heading back to Vorga 9, their fortress, their forge, their home. The Ver Dominion had meant to bury humanity on a world meant for death. Instead, they had handed them the deadliest weapon imaginable. A planet that killed everything except them. From that day forward, the galaxy no longer whispered about Class 0 death worlds as places of doom. They spoke of Vorga 9 as something far more dangerous. A human homeworld. The galaxy had a name for Zifra 9, the world that eats. It wasn't just a planet, it was a hungry, breathing nightmare. The atmosphere was a toxic soup of corrosive gases. The ground was a maze of flesh-tearing flora and quagmire swamps that swallowed whole starships. The predators didn't just hunt, they stalked for days before striking. The Kraith Empire had used Zifra 9 for centuries as their most effective execution ground. No guards. No cells. Just a one-way ticket to a death sentence. So when a group of captured human explorers refused to swear loyalty to the Empire, the Kraith decided to make an example of them. The ruling council even broadcast the sentencing to half the sector. The humans will be sent to Zifra 9. Let all see what happens to Defiance. They expected silence after that. No one had ever lasted long enough to call for help. Day 1. The Kraith dropship's hatch hissed open, and 23 humans were shoved into the steaming jungle. No weapons, no armor, only the rough clothes on their backs. The hatch slammed shut, engines roared, and the dropship lifted away. Admiral Velth of the Kraith fleet turned to his officers. "They'll be dead before the sun set." Day 3. Velth was wrong. The first transmission came from an old Kraith observation buoy orbiting Zifra 9. At first, the signal was pure static, then a flicker of image formed. It showed a man in muddy fatigues, grinning as he wrestled with something large and thrashing. The camera zoomed just enough to see the massive, snake-like predator twisting in his grip before he drove a sharpened bone spear through its skull. The footage cut to black. Day 5. Another transmission. This time it showed the humans building shelters from the thick, spike-covered vines that grew in the acidic marshes. In the background, a woman was boiling something in a crude pot. Steam curled around her as she laughed and handed a steaming bowl to a group of human children, smiling despite the poisonous rain. Across the Kraith Empire, the broadcast spread like wildfire. The footage was unencrypted. The humans hadn't asked for help. They hadn't begged. They had simply shown what they were doing. And what they were doing was living. Day 10. The Kraith began to worry. Other species in their conquered territories were watching the broadcasts, drawing their own conclusions. How are they surviving? One officer asked during a strategy meeting. Veltha's answer was cold. They're not surviving. They're advertising. Day 14. The next broadcast was longer. Grainy shots of humans in coordinated hunting packs, working together to drive a six-legged beast into a pit trap. Others were seen forging blades from scavenged ship plating and weaving armor from the hide of predators. But the moment that sent shockwaves through the galaxy was the final shot. A massive banner, stitched from predator skin, hanging between two jagged trees. The words, painted in dark, crude strokes, were simple. We're still here. Day 20. The Kraith decided enough was enough. They dispatched a retrieval team ostensibly to confirm the extermination, but in truth, to erase the growing legend before it spread further. 2 troop carriers landed on Zifra 9. Within hours, their distress signals screamed across the comm channels. Predator attacks, ambushes, traps, they never stood a chance. One of the surviving helmet cams sent back a final image before the signal died, a human standing on a ridge, rain pouring down, holding a Kraith officer's helmet like a trophy. Day 30. The humans' broadcasts became more daring. They were no longer just showing survival, they were teaching. Crude subtitles appeared in multiple alien languages: how to build fire in toxic air, how to purify poison water, how to identify edible meat on worlds with predatory ecosystems. To the enslaved peoples of the Kraith Empire, it was revolutionary knowledge. To the Kraith, it was rebellion, live-streamed from their own execution world. Day 45. The human settlement was no longer a collection of lean-tos, it was a fortress. Observation satellites caught glimpses of defensive walls, spike traps, and elevated platforms for snipers. Even worse for the Kraith, the humans had begun domesticating some of the planet's predators. Packs of four-legged hunters now patrolled alongside human warriors. Veltha's aide asked if they should jam the transmissions. Velth shook his head. If we block the broadcasts, the people will assume the humans won. And if we don't, the people will know the humans are winning. Day 60. The inevitable happened. The humans left Zifra 9. It began with a thunderclap that wasn't weather. Kraith deep space monitors detected an unauthorized launch from the planet's surface. A crude starship, armored with Deathworld alloys and powered by an engine ripped from a derelict freighter, broke through the toxic clouds. When hailed, the ship didn't answer except to transmit a live feed from its bridge. The same human man who had killed the serpent on day 3 smiled into the camera. We're done waiting. The feed cut. The ship jumped to FTL. Day 90. Attacks began on Kraith supply lines. Small raiding parties struck fast and vanished just as quickly. Each time, they left a calling card, predator skulls, carved with the words, "Zifra sends its regards." By now, their broadcasts were no longer confined to the Deathworld. The humans hacked Kraith communications to show footage of their victories. Enslaved populations began uprisings. In the streets of occupied worlds, graffiti appeared in crude alien paint, "We're still here." Day 120. The Kraith launched a full fleet to Zifra 9. The plan was to burn it from orbit, erasing the symbol before it could inspire further rebellion. They didn't expect resistance. But as the fleet approached, massive ground-based cannons, built from scavenged warship parts, opened fire. The humans had turned Zifra 9 into a fortress that could kill from the ground to the sky. Kraith ships fell in flames. The survivors retreated, humiliated. Day 180. The final broadcast came not from Zifra 9, but from the Kraith capital itself. In the middle of a live state address, every screen in the city flickered. The image of a human appeared, armor made from predator hide, rifle slung over one shoulder. Behind them was the jungle skyline of Zifra 9. The human spoke in flawless Kraith. "You sent us to die. We learned to live. Now, You'll learn what it feels like to fight for survival. The feed cut, but the damage was done. The Kraith Empire's fearsome reputation was broken. The Kraith had wanted to show the galaxy the price of defiance. Instead, the humans had shown the galaxy that even on the deadliest world in known space, defiance could thrive. Zifra 9 remained what it had always been, a place of constant danger, of endless struggle. But now, across the stars, it carried a new name. The world that humans claimed. In the SRYLL Imperium's long history of conquest, there were many ways to dispose of unwanted enemies. Some were quick. Others, creative. When a captured human strike team refused to kneel before the SRYLL overlords, the decision came swiftly: exile to Erivos. Erivos was no ordinary Class 0 Deathworld. It wasn't just deadly, it was hostile in ways science could barely define. Its storms struck with precision, lightning spearing down on metal before static even registered. The carnivorous flora had root networks that reacted to vibrations like a hunting pack. The rivers carried microorganisms that turned living tissue to black sludge within minutes. And somehow, the planet seemed to notice intruders. No one survived on Erivos. Not the SRYLL's enemies. Not their criminals. Not even their bioengineered shock troops. Which is why they thought it would be perfect for humans. Day 1. The SRYLL dropship touched down on black stone, its hull hissing under the acidic rain. 20 humans were pushed out into the storm. They wore no armor, carried no weapons. Just torn uniforms and the grim determination of those who had already accepted death. The hatch closed, the engines roared, and the dropship rose into the clouds. From the orbiting warship, Overseer Talrek allowed himself a hiss of satisfaction. By this time tomorrow, he said, there will be nothing left of them but bones. Day 3. Talrek was wrong. Erivos' orbital monitors sent back curious images. The humans had not scattered in panic, they had stayed together. They'd found shelter beneath the jagged overhang of a basalt cliff, and somehow lit a fire that burned through the acidic drizzle. Predators circled their camp but didn't strike. Instead, the massive, six-eyed creatures simply watched, then melted back into the shadows. Talrek's science officers couldn't explain it. Erivos did not watch, it attacked. And yet, the humans had been left alone. Day 7. The humans began to explore. They learned to walk barefoot on the razor-sharp basalt, navigating it with a predator's ease. They harvested fruits from the twisted black trees, fruits that normally killed in hours, and boiled them into a broth. When SRYLL biologists analyzed a sample from orbit, they were stunned. The toxins were gone. Altered chemically, as if the plants themselves had chosen to be edible for human consumption. Talrek dismissed it as coincidence. But deep down, a small, reptilian flicker of unease crept into his mind. Day 12. The predators returned. This time, they approached the human camp openly, massive, sinewed beasts with fangs like obsidian blades. Talrek watched from the observation deck, expecting slaughter. But the humans didn't run. They didn't even raise weapons. Instead, they stood their ground, watching the beasts with the same unblinking intensity. Minutes passed. Then, the lead predator dipped its head, snorted, and walked away. The rest followed. Talrek's aide muttered, "They're acknowledging each other." Day 20. The planet changed. Satellite imagery showed weather patterns shifting unnaturally. The storms still raged, but their lightning no longer struck near the humans. Floodwaters diverted away from their camp. The acidic rains lightened, falling harmlessly as warm mist when they passed overhead. The humans, in turn, expanded their settlement. They carved walls from volcanic rock, dug channels to collect clean water, and began shaping the landscape into something livable. It was as if Erivos was helping them. Day 30. Talrek sent a recon drone to gather samples directly from the human camp. It didn't make it. The drone's feed showed massive vines erupting from the ground, coiling around it, and crushing it into scrap. The attack was too fast, too precise. The vines had reacted only to the drone, not the humans who walked that same path daily. Day 40. Talrek's unease turned to alarm. Reports came in from other parts of Erivos where SRYLL forces had landed to test the environment. Entire squads were wiped out within minutes: storms, predators, collapsing terrain. The humans, meanwhile, thrived. Their numbers hadn't dwindled at all. Their camp now held cultivated fields, predator guard beasts, and workshops where scavenged metals were shaped into weapons and tools. The Deathworld's lethal hostility was one-sided. Day 50. Talrek decided to end the experiment. 3 SRYLL dropships descended toward the human settlement, carrying enough firepower to level it in minutes. The first never landed. Lightning split the sky, obliterating it mid-descent. The second was torn apart by a swarm of winged predators, their claws ripping through alloy as if it were paper. The third made it to the surface only to be met by a human ambush. The soldiers fought fiercely, but the humans moved with the terrain's perfect knowledge, striking from angles that shouldn't have been possible. When the battle was over, not a single SRYLL soldier remained alive. Day 60. The humans sent their first message. It wasn't transmitted through SRYLL comm channels, it came from the planet itself. The orbital monitors picked up seismic pulses, vibrations that translated into a crude but unmistakable pattern of sound. It was human speech. Leave. This world is ours. Talrek stared at the translation, his frilled crest flattening in disbelief. Day 90. The humans began building ships, small at first, powered by hybrid tech made from scavenged wreckage and Erivos' strange materials. The SRYLL attempted to intercept them, but every assault was thwarted, not just by the humans, but by the planet. Storms struck only SRYLL ships. Rockslides buried only SRYLL landing parties. Rivers rose to sweep away SRYLL assault craft but left human vessels untouched. It was no longer a death world in the traditional sense. Erivos had chosen. Day 120. The first human-built warship left Erivos. Its hull shimmered with volcanic glass reinforced by an alloy no SRYLL metallurgist could identify. Its engines glowed with an energy source taken directly from the planet's core. When hailed, the humans responded in clear, confident SRYLL. You tried to kill us with your planet. Now your planet fights for us. Then they jumped to hyperspace. Day 180. Raids began. SRYLL convoys vanished. Frontier stations reported storms materializing out of clear skies, followed by human strike teams who fought like the planet itself had taught them. Captured prisoners whispered that the humans claimed to be Erivos people now. That the world had marked them as its defenders. And in the darkest corners of the galaxy, other Class 0 death worlds long ignored began to draw human attention. Epilogue. The SRYLL Imperium had sought to destroy humanity by throwing them into the jaws of a living nightmare. Instead, they had given them something far worse than a weapon. They had given them a home that fought back. Erivos was still deadly to all who dared step upon it, but to humans, it was a sanctuary. And somewhere, in the endless storms and whispering forests, the planet waited for the next fool who thought they could take it away.